back, Gothamites. If you're new here, hi. I'm London, aka History of the Batman. So it is safe to say that Batman has tons of issues. We all do. It's fine, you know? But why? He seems like he has a guy that has mostly everything going for him. I thought that would sound okay, and it just doesn't. People think, oh, money solves all your problems. Well, look at Bruce Wayne. Clearly it doesn't. But for this week's video, we are going to try to figure out why Bruce Wayne's Batman has so many issues. Okay. My huskies don't really bark. He just goes, ah! So him fighting with Gohan, the little pug, is always entertaining. Huh. That's... Well, while they're doing that, I'm going to show you my shirt. It's Harley Quinn! I love this shirt. You can't really see it because of the frame, but I want to show you my little Harley. I'm just waiting for them to finish. Okay, well... I am listing the top 10 worst things that has ever happened to Batman, so we can see where his issues as Bruce Wayne and the Batman stem from, and why he is his brooding self wanting justice 25/8 because 24/7 just doesn't cut it anymore. But before we dive into the list, why don't you subscribe to this channel and become a part of this wonderful Gothamite community? It's awesome, I think. A couple of disclaimers before we jump in. For this list, I am not including moments that are solely based in film, TV, video games, or even alternate universes or Elseworld comics. All these events have been in mainstream Batman canon comic books in one point or another. Whether it's retcon or not, they have been in mainstream continuity. Also, the way that I numbered these events are based on the effects that it has had on Bruce Wayne's Batman, whether at the moment itself or throughout his whole history. Our number 10 moment is the scarring of Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face. Created by the same team that brought to life the Batman in 1939, Bill Finger and Bob Kane. What are they doing in there? Fine. It's fine. Harvey Kent, who would later be named Harvey Dent, so there's no confusion with the character Clark Kent, aka Superman, debuted in 1942's Detective Comics 66. Unlike other rogues at the time, Harvey Kent's debut in comics also featured his origin story. And unlike most villains, Harvey Dent's origin story has kind of stayed consistent throughout the decades and across all social media. Visual media. I said social media. That's just not it. When District Attorney Harvey Kent was in court proving that Boss Maroni murdered a man named Bookie Benson, Maroni decided to throw acid in Kent's pretty boy face. Batman, who was on trial to corroborate this story, tries to stop Maroni from harming Kent, but he's too late and the acid hits Kent's face, disfiguring him. Even after the surgery, half of Harvey's face was disfigured, which triggered him into turning to a life of crime and having an obsession with the number 2 and dual everything, becoming the villain Two-Face. From comics to other outside media, we know that Batman feels tremendous guilt over this transformation into Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face. Not only in many stories has Batman tried to stop this incident from happening in the courtroom and fails, but also Bruce Wayne in many stories is a very good friend to the district attorney before he has the acid thrown in his face. And as Bruce Wayne just feels really bad that his friend got harmed in this way. And as Batman wants to try to turn him away from this life of crime and going back to the Good Samaritan of Gotham City. But because typically this never happens and Harvey Dent just stays in a life of crime and is Two-Face, it always makes Batman feel guilty and sad at the same time about his one-time very good friend. Our number 9 moment on this list is the shooting of Barbara Gordon. One of the most horrible things that has happened, not just in Batman's mythology, but in DC Comics history. In Alan Moore and Brian Boland's 1988 graphic novel, Batman the Killing Joke, the Joker breaks into Commissioner Gordon's home and shoots Barbara Gordon, paralyzing her from the waist down. At the time of the publication, this graphic novel was going to be an Elseworld or an outside story, but because of the popularity and even the press around this story, they kept it within mainstream continuity. They retired Barbara Gordon, who was Batgirl at the time, and then a year later, Barbara Gordon takes up the persona of Oracle for Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad. While in the real world, this event triggered many protests and questions about using and harming women as simply plot devices to push a story. For Batman in his universe, this event was one of the two major tragedies within the Batman mythos from this year to the following year, made his war against the Joker the most personal one he truly ever has with any villain in his entire rogues gallery. This tragedy resulted in guilt on Batman's end and letting something happen that is so destructive to not just Barbara Gordon but to her father, Commissioner James Gordon, who were both close friends and allies. Overall, to this day, it is still a devastating instance within the Batman family and DC Comics. Our number 8 instance is Bruce Wayne being left at the altar by Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. Probably the most recent event on our list. Bruce Wayne's Batman and Selina Kyle's Catwoman were finally set to tie the knot in Tom King's anniversary issue of Batman issue 50. But alas, the marriage did not happen because Selina decided to not meet Bruce Wayne on the rooftop to get married, which resulted in Bruce being alone on the roof waiting for Selina with Alfred Pennyworth. Of course, if you read the comics or basically any media, Batman and Catwoman are just set up to be the ultimate love interest within this DC Comics universe. And Bruce, being the emotionally closed off person that he is, him showcasing any type of affection like this is huge. So for it to be completely shut down is obviously very devastating for him. But most importantly, it kicked off several arcs in Tom King's run that are set to emotionally damage him as a person, trying to systematically take him down as the Batman of Gotham City, which is all headed by the villain Bane. Alright, our number 7 instance is that Bruce Wayne was sexually assaulted by Talia al Ghul. Rape and sexual assault can be damaging to anyone, no matter who you are, especially if it is by someone you generally care about or love. So keeping that in mind, in Grant Morrison's Batman and Son, in particular Batman issue 656, Bruce Wayne remembers that Talia al Ghul drugged and raped him in the desert one night due to a very sketchy eugenics experiment. Then Talia drops the bomb that from this experiment comes their 10-year-old son, Damian, who was raised by the League of Assassins, courtesy of her father and Damian's grandfather, Ra's al Ghul, who's also one of the biggest enemies that Batman has ever had in DC Comics. What a dysfunctional unit. While this horrific event did produce Damian Wayne, who is Bruce's biological son and the current Robin, and Bruce loves his son Damian, of course, the fact that the whole act wasn't consensual made both Batman and fans reading this book cringe super hard. And that's mostly because in Mike W. Barr's 1987 graphic novel, Batman, Son of the Demon, not only did Bruce and Talia get married, but they did consummate the marriage consensually, and Talia did get pregnant with this child who technically is Damian Wayne now, because this is the book that Grant Morrison based this story off of. But the consent of Bruce and Talia's union was taken out solely because Grant Morrison just didn't care. He didn't really read it and he just made up his own story. So the kind of sweet moment of Bruce and Talia coming together as one, with Talia being one of Bruce's greatest love interests in DC Comics, which if you want to see other women that Bruce has been intimate with in DC Comics, I have that video in the description below if you're interested in that, because for some reason you guys like to watch videos about Bruce or like Dick Grayson having sex, because I don't know, you guys just do. But if you haven't seen that video, I will put it in the description. Those are fun to do because you guys' reactions are just really funny. So the fact that Grant Morrison just took out the consent of this has nothing to do with like a deep message or anything. He's just like, ooh, plot point, yay. That just makes this entire experience so much worse because it didn't have to be that way. It was just a bad experience in and outside of the universe. But this actually leads me to our next moment on our list. And that is our number 6 moment, the death of Bruce Wayne's biological son, aka Damian Wayne. Grant Morrison is back at it again with some horrible-ish. But in 2013's Batman Inc. issue 8, Damian as Robin is killed in a battle against the Heretic. And of course his father, Batman, was not there to save him. Especially since it was Damian's mother, Talia, who was the reason why Damian was killed in the first place. This resulted in Bruce having practically a nervous breakdown and became obsessed with trying to figure out how to resurrect his son Damian, which caused a rift between Batman and the Bat family and friends. This resulted in several arcs following Bruce's journey to resurrect Damian, which includes a battle with Talia in the Batcave, Talia dying from this fight, but not by Batman. It's a whole thing. Her body and Damian's body stolen by Ra's al Ghul so he can resurrect Damian and make assassin clones out of him. Batman fighting Ra's al Ghul to obtain the body. Then discovering Damian's body has been taken by Glorious Godfrey so he can receive a special crystal within the sarcophagus of Damian Wayne. Batman having to travel to Godfrey's home of Apocalypse, which is where the powerful villain Darkseid reigns. Batman having to fight Darkseid and his parademons to get Damian's body back, and evidently bringing Damian back to life using the Chaos Shard crystal, which of course has Darkseid's Omega sanction in it. So of course Damian wasn't out of comics for very long, but this entire journey that Bruce has to take, along with the damage that it placed on him mentally and emotionally, was a huge, horrible experience for Batman as a whole. Speaking of Darkseid, our number 5 moment on this list is Bruce Wayne's Batman being killed by Darkseid. Oh look, would you look at that? We are here with another Grant Morrison story. Like, his run was fantastic, but I'm telling you, he put Batman through the ringer so many times. Like, I could do a whole video just like the top 10 horrible things that Grant Morrison has put Batman through, because there's more than 10. Like, it's a lot. At the end of 2008, Bruce Wayne's Batman is seemingly killed by the villain Darkseid in Grant Morrison and J.G. Jones's book Final Crisis. And Batman shoots a special gun at Darkseid to essentially take him out. However, Batman's shot casts him out into the Omega Sanction when you see that Bruce has to literally travel through time to return to the current state of Gotham City in Grant Morrison's limited series Batman: The Return of Bruce Wayne. Even though Bruce technically wasn't dead, the rest of the world and the DC universe thought he was, and for literally about 2 years Bruce Wayne's Batman was out of comics, and Dick Grayson had to stop being Nightwing for a minute and take up the mantle as Batman along with Damian Wayne as Robin. And Bruce Wayne's Batman technically doesn't become Batman again until the New 52 reboot in 2011. So Bruce obviously returns as Batman, but getting kinda killed and your entire family and friends and rogues think that you're dead and you have to travel through time to get back to being Batman, I would say that is a really horrible thing. You always have to add in when you get seemingly killed into these lists, right? Being killed is bad. Killing is bad. That's it. Alright, our number 4 moment is that Batman's back is broken by the villain Bane. So in Batman issue 497, which is part of the huge crossover arc Batman Nightfall, the villain Bane breaks into Wayne Manor knowing that Bruce Wayne is Batman and literally beats him up all through Wayne Manor and all through the Batcave, and then actually breaks his spine by cracking him over his knee, which is, this panel is probably one of the most iconic images, especially from the 1990s, but overall in Batman's history. And stemming from this, because Bruce Wayne had to heal to become Batman again, we have John Paul Valley, who becomes the replacement Batman, and his Azrael Batman is super violent and lethal and just a bad look on Batman's end, and Bruce has to literally fight him to take back the mantle once he's healed. It's all just a hot mess. This moment in Batman's history when he is systematically taken down by Bane is at this point within Batman's mythology the biggest failure that Batman has ever faced against a villain. At the time, Batman had not experienced a failure like this, and it caused Batman not to just try to heal his body physically, but also his mind, and trying to get back to the point of being the Caped Crusader for Gotham City. It was a huge mental and emotional and physical toll that hit Batman like a ton of bricks. And I think most importantly, this instance in Batman's history has been seen not just in film and video games, but also just in comics, referencing that Bane is the man that broke the bat. The fact that there is a man that broke the bat shows not only Batman's humanity, but also his sorrow and the very difficult nature of returning back to the Dark Knight that he once was. But you know, I always like Batman's humanity, so even though it was a horrible event, this arc is one of the most important to read and to know within Batman's 80-year history. Yeah, I said it. Our number 3 moment is the creation of the Joker. The Joker just existing in the DC universe has been a tragedy, to say the least. But his creation in several comics and other media has been linked to Batman. In particular, his most popular origin story of falling into a vat of chemicals, which not only corrupted his mind, but also his physical appearance, from turning his hair green, to turning his skin chalky white, to turning his lips ruby red, that casted a permanent grin on his face. The first time we see the Joker's origin story of any kind is in 1951's Detective Comics issue 168, in the story The Man Behind the Red Hood. And even in the updated version, Alan Moore's 1988 graphic novel The Killing Joke, the man who would transform into the Joker jumps into the vat of chemicals to escape Batman's clutches. So technically, if you think about it, it's Batman's fault that Joker exists, but of course, that can be debated. But due to all the horrible acts that Joker has not only placed on the people of Gotham City and the world, but also Batman and the Batman family, has been very unforgivable and sparks the very popular question and discussion of, why doesn't Batman just kill the Joker and just end it all? I can't even get into it. That's just a whole other video that I can do. Our number 2 moment is the death of Jason Todd. In the arcs from 1983 to 1984, Jason Todd is debuted and he becomes the second Robin the Boy Wonder after Dick Grayson moves on, grows up, and becomes the mature persona of Nightwing and is leading the new Teen Titans. But once Crisis on Infinite Earths hit in 1985 and the post-crisis continuity stepped in, which changed a lot of people's origin stories and backgrounds, Jason Todd became this very rebellious orphan who was adopted by Bruce, and a lot of fans reading the comics didn't like this character, probably because they were so used to Dick Grayson and him being a humble gentleman of sorts and just being such a fantastic ally to Bruce Wayne's Batman. Having Jason Todd being this kind of annoying kid was just not it for the people reading these books. And DC Comics saw that. So they posed the opportunity for the fans to actually vote of whether or not they wanted Jason Todd within Batman continuity at all, and that came in Jim Starlin's 1988 and 1989 arc, Batman: A Death in the Family. In this story, the Joker gets his hands on Jason Todd, beats him to a bloody pulp with a crowbar, and then leaves him in a warehouse that is wired with explosives. And of course, the explosives detonate and Batman is too late to rescue his adoptive son and finds him, and Jason Todd has died. Now, what's bad about this event is that not only did the fans vote, they called in and vote whether or not they wanted Jason Todd to die, and according to the votes, Jason Todd perished. So that's already a huge moment within DC Comics history of killing off a major character within a publication, but also looking at Batman, the in-universe looking at Batman. This happened almost right after Barbara Gordon is shot by the Joker. So having these back-to-back tragic moments caused by the Joker hurting Batman's family made Batman and the Joker's war just on a whole other personal level. It just made it just a whole different entity of sorts. And Batman in the story begins to realize that this war and trying to stop the Joker is probably going to be something that he does for a very, very long time and doesn't see the end in sight in stopping the Joker's chaos. And of course, not just that, but Bruce Wayne's Batman has riddling guilt for years over the death of Jason Todd and him not getting there on time to save his young sidekick and his adoptive son. In the short period of time that Batman doesn't have a Robin, he goes on a huge violent vigilante streak and it's just not himself. And Alfred and Dick Grayson almost kind of have an intervention with him. And this leads to actually Tim Drake, who will become the third Robin introduced within Batman and DC Comics continuity. But of course, that entire instance shows that Batman kind of needs a Robin to balance him out. And that's been seen since 1940 when Dick Grayson debuted in Detective Comics 38. Dick Grayson's bright optimism totally balanced Batman's very dark vigilante demeanor. And that kind of has been the case throughout the decades with all of the different Robins that Batman has had. And considering people die and come back to life, and it's only for about like maybe a year, 6 months, longest 2 years, Jason Todd does not return to the continuity until the early 2000s. In particular, in Judd Winnick's 2005 book, Under the Hood, where Jason Todd takes up the mantle of the new Red Hood. So the fact that throughout the rest of the 80s and the entire 1990s and the early 2000s, Bruce would always look back at the fact that he did not save Jason Todd and would just be riddled with that guilt. And that has affected him even still, even though Jason Todd is back being Red Hood, kind of being, you know, trash. That still has haunted Batman for so many years. Our number one moment on this list is the death of Bruce Wayne's parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne. Our most tragic event in Batman's history literally created Batman. So how could it not be our number one pick? Batman's origin story was first told by Bill Finger in November of 1939's Detective Comics issue 33, where we see that one night after coming home from the theater, Thomas and Martha Wayne are gunned down by an unknown mugger, leaving Bruce in horror seeing his parents murdered before his very eyes. This event caused him to swear that he will train to avenge his parents, to assure that not only does this event never happen to anyone again, but to also protect the city that he loves and lives in. This leads to Bruce Wayne training his mind, body, and spirit and transforming to become the Batman. No matter what media, I don't care. Regular continuity, alternative continuity, film, TV, video games, anything. Batman's parents' death is always referenced and is a huge part of who Bruce Wayne is as a vigilante hero. It is the foundation. It is the core. It is literally the reason why he is who he is. And in many comic books, you see that Bruce Wayne being the Batman is literally his destiny. It is his fate. There have been comics that show, well, what if Bruce Wayne's parents survived? What if he didn't become Batman? What if he's just not the person that he is? And it always leads back to Bruce Wayne needs to be Batman. That is who he has to be within this life. Even though it is literally his destiny, Bruce Wayne's parents' death always haunts him, and it makes him feel guilty that he couldn't save them, even though he was a very young child. Unfortunately, he really couldn't do anything to stop this horrific event from happening. While this and all of the other events on this list have scarred Bruce Wayne's Batman horrifically in some way within his history, they did make and mold him into the vigilante of Gotham City, which, as I've said time and time again, has proved to be his destined path. Basically, from this list, we see that tragedy birthed and continually evolved this character within his 80-year history, making him the Batman that we know today, for better or for worse. Thank you guys so much for watching the top 10 worst things that has ever happened to the Batman. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a bat thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this list, what you think the worst thing that has ever happened to Batman is, and if you think that another event that was not included in our top 10 list should be included. I am curious to know what you think is the worst thing that has happened to Batman. Oh, and also, if you have a video idea or you have something that you would like me to talk about in depth or discuss, let me know that in the comments below as well, because I am always open to ideas and different things. I would love to hear what you guys would like to learn about, because that is what this community is all about. It's about learning and having fun doing it. As always, all of my social media is linked in the description below, so why don't you give it a follow and become a Gothamite. Check out my videos for DC Comics DC Fans channel, and of course, please subscribe to this channel and become a part of this Batman community. It would mean so much to me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will have more History of Batman soon right here on YouTube. Remember, Gothamites, it's all about peace, love, and Batman. Bye. Almost dropped my phone. I got it though.